Brock Purdy, who's the name du jour as it concerns NFL most valuable player, with his electric start to the season and the Niners looking like a potential regular season juggernaut.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, like, his electric start to the season is measured in like a different way than we normally measure. Like, Patrick Mahomes' season last year, for example, where he was like led the league in passing yards, led the league in touchdown passes. Like, Brock Purdy's season is like sort of like understated awesome almost. It's about like efficiency and EPA and never, ever, ever making mistakes ever. Like, has thrown no interceptions. There's very few incompletions even on the season. So it's almost like a different kind of candidacy. And he can win, obviously. Like, all of these players are making like and people, sometimes we do these award markets like week after week, and I'm sure people are like, well, when is the betting? Like, when does that happen? And be like, well, think about it. There's like 18 opportunities to bet every award market over the course of the season. So like for a lot of them, like for Offensive Player of the Year, we already had our betting opportunity. Now we may not have another one the entire rest of the season. But for this, I don't think we've really had one. It just in my opinion, people might be like, oh, we had an opportunity. It was Purdy. And for me, it's like, I don't think we have an opportunity yet. And maybe we'll need to get polling, and we need like 3 guys against each other, and one's more likely, and we'll bet the one. Like, that's 10 weeks down the road. It's a long way away. And until then, the players are just going to be priced like how they're performing and how the teams are performing. So Purdy can win, plays on maybe the best team. Statistics are good enough. You'd like the yards and the touchdowns to be more. But look, if he's 4,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, and no interceptions, I think we're all pretty good with that in terms of an MVP resume. I think my biggest thing is just, okay, he's priced like one of the favorites. To sell this to somebody as a bet, you have to feel like that's not good enough right now. Like, that he shouldn't be alongside Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and these guys. He should actually be somehow even lower than that. And that's where I just don't know how you get. I don't know how you get there. I think he's just one of these guys, one of the players who has a chance to win. The idea that he's more likely right now, to me, is like an extreme bullishness on the Niners, where they are going to be one of the best teams, but like the Eagles are also going to be one of the best teams, and the Chiefs are going to be one of the best teams. Like we're already there on that in terms of pricing him. So like, I don't know what the argument is for like, no, actually he needs to be like 3-1 or 2-1. Like, that's what you need to believe to make this bet right now. If you're making the bet because you're like, well, I just think he'll win, then like you're making a huge mistake because the entry point's all wrong. His price already just dropped a ton last week. That's the worst time to buy something, when the price has gone crazy the week before. That was his show out game. He is now entering a game, and I had this tweet bookmark to read later. I don't have to do it all here. Have you read it all about like what the Jim Schwartz defenses, he's the Browns defensive coordinator, have done to Kyle Shanahan in all of their meetings historically? It's like insane. He's like basically the only guy who's like mangled Shanahan offenses every single time they've played. And they play the Niners this weekend in a game with a total of like 20, where there's going to be inclement weather a lot of the time. Does that sound like a situation, just again, putting all bias aside, does that sound like a situation where you want to buy the quarterback of the team to win most valuable player? Probably not. Not like they can't win the game. We don't know if Deshaun Watson's playing, but like, this is the buy point? Entering like the bad weather game against the defense that can handle him? What? Like, what is his yards projection going to be for this week? Like, what is the likelihood he makes a mistake this week versus all the other weeks? Now, maybe he just makes no mistakes the entire season, but man, you're going down the schedule. You're like, all right, where could he throw a pick? You might pick, this might be your first like selection of a game. Weather game against a really good defense, against a defensive coordinator that knows Shanahan really well. That might be your first selection. So I just don't know why like now is, and it's funny, you're getting asked about it all the time because it's the thing that just happened. But like, you're not trying to bet the thing that just happened. You're trying to be like, all right, like the price is this. What do I think it's going to be in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks? He's already among the first tier favorites. He's already with all these guys. Like, in order to make the bet now, you have to feel like he'll be so much way far ahead of them in 3 to 4 weeks. And with his statistics not being gaudy and like a raw counting number, that's not going to happen.
Maybe the Niners have the gaudier one-loss record, but I think it's very likely that Hurts is going to end up with better stats than Purdy does. And I think that would be like the differentiator, unless the Niners win like 3 or 4 more games than the Eagles. And maybe San Francisco will have a better one-loss record. I don't know if it's going to be that big of a chasm between the two teams that Purdy would be elevated. They do, and they play in Philadelphia. By the way, we've got, and I did this earlier on like one of the radio spots. I think it was on Baldy's show, actually. I think it's November 20th, Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl rematch, and then December 3rd, 2 weeks later, is NFC Championship game rematch. So like, we'll learn a lot about like the NFC, like how it's going to go with home field advantage and stuff. Yeah, it's really like we're gearing up for like a great end of the season. So Hurts would be my choice if I had to pick someone, Ken, in the NFC. In the AFC, maybe Mahomes doesn't have the stats that everybody else does. Like, their defense is so good, and I don't know. It's chalky. I think I'd probably still pick Mahomes. Like, if I'm just picking a winner, Burrow, I think, is very interesting, though, if we're talking about, like, trying to bring price into the equation. And I know they're behind the 8 ball a little bit, but he looks #back to me. And I think he's still capable of ripping it off. I know the schedule's not easy, but Mahomes would be my pick and Hurts would be my pick. I know, like, very, like, revolutionary stuff from yours truly.
But that's like what it's supposed to be. But like, you're doing the right thing. I think in betting content, everyone's inclination in all markets, anything that's multi-way, anything with a ton of options, everyone's first inclination that does content, not that bets, that does content, is like, I need to pick something that's not a favored price. Like, I need to try to sell something that's a long shot because that's like better content, right? Like, well, everyone's on this stuff, but it's actually this other thing. Like, this isn't going to work like that. Like, you know who's going to win? One of those guys. Like, that's who's going to win. Like, they project to be like all the best terms or all the best teams, and these are the best players on those teams. It's not going to be anybody else. Like, there's no one left to emerge. Like, the crazy one would be like Burrow. Like, and when Joe Burrow's the crazy one, that tells you how not crazy everything is. And you bring up, like, you think he can win. I do too. But I just, again, to bring price in, like, they do have multiple losses already, and the likelihood that they finish with like a gaudy enough record to merit him consideration, it's a low probability outcome, and that he's priced like it's a low probability outcome. So like, he can do it. It's just, it's not that likely, and he's being priced like it's not that, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't think that's crazy. Now, if you're trying to figure out, like, can someone's price drop this week? You know, I mean, he would be an interesting candidate, but I would just point out, and we'll do Brock Purdy in a second too, and this will be come up with this too. There might be really bad weather in Cincinnati for this game. You think Burrow's having a monster stat game in this game? Like, to be fair, Mahomes is playing with like 20-mile-an-hour wind tonight. Now, they're playing the worst defense ever, so he sets up a little better. Tua can name his stats. Tyreek Hill can too, by the way. Can name their stats on Sunday if they want to.
I haven't written down any other names because I didn't really think any were that interesting. Ken, maybe you disagree. Thoughts here on Defensive Rookie of the Year? I
just think this serves as like a constant reminder of early in the season, I think you're making a big mistake if you're laying big prices in award markets. First of all, your return is very small, tying up your money forever for not very much money. And these things can still turn on a dime. They really can. You'd be like, well, Defensive Rookie of the Year, like, who's going to win if Carter doesn't win or if Witherspoon doesn't win? We don't even have to know the guy's name yet. There's 13 games left in the season. Like, it could be somebody who's done absolutely nothing up to this point. That's where we are here. So, like, yeah, it's the same thing I said last week. Should Carter be a favorite? Yeah, sure. And he could be a big favorite right now. But, like, we don't know anything here. And like, I just, especially Defensive Rookie of the Year, where like, you're not projecting usage. It's not like receivers and running backs where it's like, what's their role going to be? It's just it's not random. I guess it's unpredictable to a certain extent. And Carter's been the best so far. He has 3.5 sacks. Everybody talks about him like he's baby Aaron Donald. And that's great. And he can be a big favorite. And I have no money in this market right now, like $0. And I'm happy to keep having no money in it. And like, basically if you like money, the way you want this to play out, rather than be like, well, I like money, so I jammed Carter -110, and now I'm holding on for dear life for 6 months. Like, the way you want this to work, if you like winning a lot of money, is you want him to get out to a big lead, and then you want some kind of catalyst where he gets caught at the end. Like, that's what you want. And then like 7 weeks from now, you want to bet on a guy that nobody's ever heard of, and he's going to close the winner. Like, that's what I want to happen. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but I lose $0 if he wins right now. You're take a wait and see approach here. He's ahead, but like 3.5 sacks. Like, this is not like some insurmountable lead for someone else in some statistical standpoint. Also, there's always the risk of an injury. So just like, you get these big favorites. I think there's the sense of like, well, I gotta like parlay this guy with everything, and I gotta like put a lot of money into this because I got FOMO. Like, what if he goes to -500? I don't want to miss out. This guy's so far ahead right now. It's just way too early for that kind of stuff. Like, the only time I want to jam minus prices, there's a couple rare exceptions to this, like Rookie of the Year where there's no polling, but the only time I want to like jam minus prices is late in the season when we get polling, and the polling is, it's this guy, and the market hasn't reflected the polling. Like, that's when you want to jam, because like the people who are voting are telling you it's the guy, and the market still doesn't reflect that yet. He's not off the board. He's minus 200. He should be minus 10,000, whatever it is. Like, those are the times to jam. Like, early in the season, we have no polling on this. Nobody's made up their mind yet on anything. Why would you lay a big price? So just, I think, like, keep a really open mind. Cool. Like, let's let him get out to a big lead, win for $0. And then the best way this can play out is something we're not expecting in the next month or two. A player emerges, we start betting him, it becomes a 2-3 player race, and we go from there.
I want to really, but a player emerges sounds like the great, like the first line of like the great American novel. A player emerges.
Sure. ... You look at the schedule for Detroit, it's like this week at Tampa, next week at Baltimore. That's kind of it for like 10 weeks in terms of games they can lose. They got Dallas week 17. That might be it in terms of challenging games. So this is one of the challenging games remaining. They're about a 3.5 point favorite. Doesn't look like they're going to have kind of the full roster. Maybe Amon-Ra plays though, which would obviously be really good. What are you doing here betting wise? If anything, Tampa off a bye, Detroit by like 3.5.
Yeah, Locke, I tell you what, these Thursdays, there's been a couple of surprises. I'd say Danny Campbell, coach of the year, culture setter, physical guy. We might be hitting a little too hard in practice, because this is a multiple weeks in a row where just somebody who didn't get hurt in Sunday's game, last week Gibbs, this week Laporta pops up on the injury report. No, it didn't matter when you're playing, the Panthers. This week, obviously much tougher opponent. I know there's been some very sharp money on the under in this game that hit 44, 43.5, 43. I tell you what, it would be tough for me to get behind, a juice 3 here. I think extremely competitive game. Hopefully one will pull out. But I agree with you.
Oh,
this is kind of the game.
No. Kanish, put your big boy pants on. Be a man and bet on you guys can't cover 3 on the road at Baker Mayfield. You're not going to bet the Lions this week?
Listen, I'm sorry that all of my free capital is tied up in NFC North futures for this show. But if I had any left, it would be 3-0 for me. The roar does not stop here, baby. Those cannons, they're not going to be firing at all on Sunday. You might as well have the guy who runs the ship give him the day off. 7-0 Lions in a grinder.
7-0 Lions would be a terrible
7-0. That exact score, like 500 to 1.